Hey gang, welcome back to Joe Daddy's Garage. Today's video is part 9 in the Cobra Jet rebuild series. Now if you've seen the other videos, you know that I'm dealing with a very rusty 69 Mach 1 Cobra Jet, and we're trying to salvage as many pieces of the original car as we can, and to do that everything has to come apart. So if you look, you can see what's left of the front of the car sitting up here, and then I have a bunch of new parts down here, including a floor pan and firewall on the sides. But we're still going to piece together pieces of the original car into the new build. So I've already worked on the shock towers and rebuilt those. There is some footage that'll be on the end of this video with the driver's side shock tower, showing you what I did to that. But what I want to work on right now is these air boxes. I assume that's the correct term, I don't know, but that is what I call them. These are on the side of the cowl, okay? And what's important about these in most respects is there's a stamping on here that has the date code on it, and overall the upper portion of this is in really decent shape. The problem is down here, this bottom edge. Now I could probably fabricate pieces to make this work, but some of this is very complicated. This shape right here, in fact, it would be very difficult to make those pieces. And honestly, it would take probably more time than it would for me to use pieces from this one. So this is a new airbox, and you can see it has what appears to be a very close or somewhat correct shape down here. And what I want to do is cut off this bottom edge and save this curved piece and work this back into the original part. So I need to do this to both sides. And again, this piece, yes, it's new, but the goal is to try to keep as many original parts on the car. I will point out that there is some variation between these two. If you look, the original one has some wrinkling up here on the top, whereas this one doesn't. This is a very smooth stamping. Some of the lines are just a little bit different between the two, but overall it's a decent copy of the original. So I'm going to get started on this and show you how I cut and section and weld stuff back together. Let's get started. Okay, so as I was saying, I'm going to be cutting off this lower section that's rusted out. The difficulty is, where do you make those cuts? Because if you look at it, it'd be pretty simple to come straight across this way and then cut through this channel and then come across, and that may work. I don't know how good these lines are between the two of these. This one looks like it kind of widens out right here, whereas this one's kind of tight. So what I'll probably do, I may have to just come through the middle of this. As much as I would like to actually come up here and go around this curve, I don't know. I may have to do that, because I don't mind this being out of shape, but the difficulty is, where do you weld the two back together? So let's just bypass that. Now what I think I ought to do is probably come across, let's just come up with an angle that suits us, right? So just eyeballing it, if I were to cut down to here, I can cut this flange off, and then here what I want to do is, I don't necessarily want to make a corner. I'll probably curve this somehow, make that a curve, because when you weld, you don't really want to have a corner. If you have a curve, it makes for a better weld. It doesn't pull the metal together as much. So just kind of look at it like that, and then come down. I want to eliminate this piece here. So if I make this straight edge, more or less just come down. That's kind of what I'm looking for. Now, the challenge, of course, is how do you get these corners back in the same place? What I mean by that is, you can get this off just by cutting it and not knowing any references. So let's just, as an example, if I make this corner just an end, kind of an end reference, right? And let's just go 4 inches up here, roughly. And now I know that after I cut this off, this is 4 inches from here down to what would be this corner. Now, it may not really matter much in other projects. This is pretty well hidden inside, you know, the fender and all that. But if you're making a piece or a patch, it helps to have a reference line to come back to, just so you know you're in the same plane. So I want to end up cutting this off, and then I'll take this piece and lay it on here and make that a template. Now I could also, in this case, if I wanted to, make a reference and just say this is 4 inches. It's not as critical on this piece because this corner may be cut differently than that corner, but it just gives me another line that I can use. You can also come up here, let's say at the top, and just as an example, let's just say I went to 10 inches, right? And I came from the 10 inches and I realized this is like 4 3/8 to this corner. If I come up here and do this, that 10 inches is right on that mark. So this one's going to be a little bit different. See, there's some difference right there. And not that it's going to, again, make much difference in this particular part, but it's just giving you some ideas as to how you can create reference points. I know I'm not exactly on my line, but that's okay. And Ziz wheel's about worn out. There we go. That looks decent. So now I want to draw a line on this piece. Got that opening there. This flange pretty closely matches, but yeah, I think what I'll end up doing is cutting it a little bit big, as I normally suggest. And by cutting it big, I can trim it down to make it fit. Okay. It is an awkward piece, so it's not like just going to sit still for me. Yeah, that's pretty close. And I can still take and make a measurement here. Even though I know this is probably going to be different because I've already proved that the length is slightly different between the two of these. Because this one would have been 4. Yeah, pretty close. Pretty close. But I need this to be a little bit tighter in the end. Basically what I want to do is, like, I can take this and piece it onto the car, onto what I have, and clamp everything in place to make sure that it's going to line up with, like, the rocker panel, and then go from there. So this one is the driver's side. So I can come back here, and we already know that the firewall, everything else is going to line up. Basically, I can take this and I can clamp it on to the side panel here and come up underneath it and test fit these pieces. So yeah, let me get some clamps and we'll clamp that in place, because none of this is changing dimensionally. I might need to flatten that out just a little bit, make sure it's going to line up. Now, obviously there's still some metal to remove from there, but for the most part we're good. We already know this is going to line up right here with the top, or the base for the cowl. Get this in. Now, there are some things I can't change. As an example, this lower section here, this pushes in when it's in line with this edge up here. Nothing I can do about that. This side, let me get one more clamp. Push that back. That all lines up pretty good right there. Now this, you can see this angle is off. This is where the cowl sits, and this is kicked up right here. This should be more flat. This lines up really nice. So yeah, pretty happy with how that looks. So I take this piece, tuck it up underneath, and that gives me a good representation of where it needs to be. So it's hitting on this corner right here. This line is actually going to be okay where I cut it, and then once I get it around this corner here, then it's gonna sit back against the rest of the car. But right now it wants to pivot on this corner, so I have to trim this out some more. Yeah. Help that go down. Huh? You know what? We might be pretty close, even though this is still hitting. So I can take my Sharpie, and that's a nice part about this right now is it's wide open. come in and just do a rough tracing. You can see that corner right there. That's actually really close to being where I need it. This corner's hitting a little bit different shape. Yeah, this shape is a little bit different as well. But you know what? Yeah, when I try to push this back, that's where it wants to fight on that corner. You can see that. No, we're almost there already. Look at that. I think that's right where it needs to be, honestly. Yeah, we're about ready to weld this, honestly. I mean, it's really close. All right. I'm just going to touch up a little bit here in this one corner, and I'm going to weld this thing on. All right, I have the piece fitting pretty well. Some of it, yeah, I'm going to overlap just a little bit. There's nothing wrong with doing kind of an overlap weld here. This is going to make it strong, and again, this is something that won't be seen anyway, but it'll be nice and solid. So I got this corner fitting the way I like it. Over here it fits nice, and of course on this edge, and let's get it welded in place. Now, of course, I'm not welding it to the car. I'm just using this to hold everything in place. So I'll just keep on doing these little fills until it's solid. Just a little more welding, and we'll be nice and solid again. All right, I have all this welded solid. I even went on the inside and welded this. So I want to grind this down, try to smooth it up some, make it look better. It always helps to plug in your tools. Just saying. All right, you get the idea. I'm going to keep blending this down. I'm not worried about this being a perfect transition because this will be behind, again, the fender and everything else. You really won't ever see this. If you do see this, well, something's going on that is going to need, means there's a lot more work or something. But that's good and solid. I'm going to take care, of the other one. And then I kind of want to do a mock-up of pieces and parts just to see how it's going to look. So there we go. Okay, so here's some bonus footage. This is the driver's side shock tower. You already know that I did weld up the torched in holes that were on the passenger side shock tower down here where they had cut a hole. I rebuilt that. I also welded up some pitting in different areas on this, and I rebuilt the top half of the rear apron. So that is looking really good. And the driver's side, I didn't want to remove this whole panel just because I had a small damaged area, and there were holes rusted through here. So I welded that up. I actually made a plate and put in this piece right here, and then welded up these holes, and I've been grinding on that. On the inside, I also welded up the hole that they had cut here, and there was a little bit of wear on this side, and I welded that. In fact, they had started to make a hole, and they didn't get all the way through, so I filled that in. If you look at the underside of this is where I welded in a filler piece, and I still have to grind that down, but it's not really that important because all of this is underneath and won't be seen. But I'm going to address it anyway. Now, what I want to do is show you some things here. When you're trying to fix up stuff like this isn't just a matter of go at it and just cut things away and figure it out. What I like to do is find a piece. In this case, this is the rear apron off of the passenger side. I don't want to cut up the apron piece that was on the driver's side just for a little piece of metal. Now, also I should point out that one isn't quite stamped as well as this one. There's a couple ways you can approach this. One is you can make these short pieces and this short piece, and even this short piece, if you wanted to, make them in individual pieces and weld them together. But I'm looking at this piece, and I'm like, well, right here is the start of this curve. This can be flattened back out, and then I can make this drop on this corner up here. And I only need to come down to here to make this happen. So basically this piece already kind of exists inside of this piece. So what I want to do is draw this out. So if I'm kind of looking at it like this, I already know I don't need this part over here. Don't need that. I'm not going to need any of this. I am working on, really, I need probably this section right here. And I can come all the way out to here. Now this, you know, that should give me plenty to work with. And what I want to do is use my nibbler. There's a couple ways you can approach this. I just want to show you the nibbling tool. I've used this before, and basically what it does is it has a little plunger in here and this little cutout, and that plunger goes back and forth, and it takes out little kind of like crescent moon slices. So let me show you how that works. Okay, now there you can see that. Those are a bunch of the little pieces that it cuts out. They're all stacked up there. So, I'm just going to start cutting. Always cut bigger than what you need. What? I don't need to go that direction. Come here. So like I said, there's my beginning of my piece. Now, some of this can bend a little bit by hand. This isn't a very sharp transition here. Probably use the table a little bit. Yeah, I need to make it just a little bit crisper. I guess you can see what I'm talking about now. Trying to replicate that as close as I can. I got that a little bit off. Okay, so with that, I already know I've got a measurement kind of like right here. Now this isn't going to be as critical, this distance, because this gets covered up by the cap that goes to the cowl, but you still want this to be solid. So in this case, I'm going to come back. Inch and 5/8, I think. Then that looks better. I got the wrong disc on there. All right. Okay, I'm gonna take my cutoff wheel. That's what I want to go down with that. I'm going to cut a little bit short for now, let's say. Yeah, I got the angle off a little. So when I was looking at it here, I'm planing out that way. I got to get this, change it so it's more like that. That's why you test fit stuff. See, that's going the wrong direction. I got to get this back that way. Closer. That looks much better. Let's soften that up just a little bit. Okay, feeling better about that. Now, the thing is, I'm going to have to clamp it down. This new piece is actually thicker than what's on here. Now, I'm going to put a mark on the back side of that line so I know where it is. And then I get a nice crisp edge. Okay, so here I squared up that corner. Sometimes you got to go a little past, try to get that 90 degree. So now I can take this and set it up here, and that looks pretty close. Okay, now what I want to do is I can eliminate some of this where I did some weld. So if I get a look at it and I go, okay, well, this line is there. I know this is crooked, but I can square that up a little bit just for cosmetics. Look at that again. So I will cut this a little bit on the high side, and then trim as necessary to get this to fit in there. Duckbill pliers, very handy. And I think that's what I want. So just have to fine tune it a little more and get it ready to tack weld on. All right, you get the idea. Once I get this all welded in, I'll put another tape line, cut off this edge, and then roll this corner back so that it matches the shape down here, because it has this bent down flange. So yeah, I'm happy with that. Let me get that finished and we'll move on. So everything is welded here, and of course I did finish welding this, grinding it down, and then I cut this edge to match what was there before. So very happy with how this looks. Matches very well. So I'm gonna move on. Here I cut out this corner. It was busted up like that. So I did the same thing that I did on the other shock tower when I repaired it. Made a filler strip and then did a little repair work here and also here. So as far as I'm concerned, this shock tower is ready to go. I may do a little more fine tuning here. This was not knocked in by me, that was knocked in from the manufacturer. I may knock this back out just a little bit to flush it up and go over it for any other minor bends or dents or anything like that. And so that'll be it for that shock tower. So here is the passenger side airbox. I did the same thing, cut this off, welded it on. I also welded again on the inside just to make it a little stronger. And I need to blend down all of this weld material, and that'll come later, but now it's solid and I'm happy with that. So as you can see, currently I have none of the pieces on the front or the sides of the floor pan. What I want to do is like a real mock-up of as many pieces as I can to make sure things are going to fit. Previously, the firewall, it was just sitting on top of the floor pan. And I want to tuck it under, make sure it's in the right position, set the sides up, and kind of put everything in place as best I can, and we'll get a look at it and see what it looks like. Pieces. Now, of course, this needs to fit under. Okay. And this is why I wanted to try this, to see if I had any conflict. So with the design, that's going to be fighting me because I can't drop it down onto the frame member. There it goes, I think. There we are. Whew. So that shows me that the firewall, hopefully, is in the right place, you know, as far as how deep it has to go in. So now I know that my approach might need to be a little different as I move forward on these, just to make room for them to drop in. Yep. It is interesting though at how tight that is. I know I had somebody that had shared some concern with how far away it appeared that the flanges on the frame rails were from when the firewall was first sitting in it. But again, it was sitting on top of the floor pan. Better. Note to self, get a shorter bolt. All right. That's a good sign. Oops. Up here. Here we are. Oh yeah, this has to go forward. Kind of figured it did. Okay. What do I need? I need an air box. I may have to back this side up just a little bit. Now again, there's a lot of adjusting that will have to happen moving forward, but at this point, I'm just kind of eyeballing it. That looks better. That does look better. Again, a little tuning will happen here and here. It's not quite exactly where I want it. There we go. That looks a lot better. All right, so now I can see another part of this challenge. Maybe putting on the shock towers onto the frame rails before they go into place. Yeah. But I can make it work. Now, one more thing that I want to get out of the box and just set it in place is the cowl. I really want to see how this looks with that in place. So let me go grab that. Pieces, parts, pieces and parts. Which one's the cowl? Hey, there it is. Oh, that's a good sign. That's a good sign. These were rusted pretty bad on the old car, and there are new ones in there, so that's a good thing. Okay, so a little bit of a drop off here. I have to figure that out because that should not be interfering with that. So I'll have to play with that some. This side sets down in. So there's something going on here that's helping keep this from dropping down. But it will drop down one way or another. I'm just going to set this up here. Okay. That's as far as I'm going to go. Now, I do have the roof skin, but I'm not going to drag that out here and try to set it up on there by myself. No point in doing that. I have the pieces that go here that I can test fit. Let me see where those are at. I think they're in the back as well. Now these are probably not the ones we're going to use, but they'll suffice for this portion. Yeah, I've got some tweaking to do to get this side down more. That side's pretty close. This side's gonna have to come down. So yeah, it feels more like a car now. And obviously there's still a lot to do, a lot of test fitting, a lot of verifying what goes where and how it's going to interact with the next piece. And I still have to drill a bunch of holes down in the floor supports so I can weld the frame rails in. More prep work to do to get the shock towers in place just for the welding purposes. So it's looking pretty good. A little concerned, not much, but a little concerned with this gap behind the firewall. Not sure why that's off. I'll do some more measuring and stuff. What's surprising is this is lining up really nice. We know this distance is correct based on the floor pan, and then also this distance is correct again based off of the floor pan and measurements that I've taken from the original car and my 68, and knowing that this is all good. You can see this firewall fits really nice against this frame rail. So there's something going on with this right here that I'll have to figure out. And it may come down to the fact that once the new piece is in place, or I say the original upper half of the firewall is in place, then I can adjust accordingly to make things fit. But overall, I'm happy with that. All right, that'll be the end of this video. Now, there's still a lot more to do. As I said, I will adjust, fit, test fit, test fit, test fit, everything before I even get close to doing any welding. And I recommend you all do the same thing. Even hanging fenders or doors or anything that can help you with alignments and making sure everything fits proper before you do any welding, because you don't want to have to backtrack and have to fix something later on when you're way down the road in the process. So, as it is, I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. If you would, leave a thumbs up, leave a comment, let me know what you think about this video. And I also want to thank my patrons who are supporting me and helping me continue to make these videos. I appreciate them so much. If you're interested in becoming a patron, there is a link in the description below. Also, if you're going to use Amazon or make any purchases like that, I have a link for that as well. So if you buy something, I get a little percentage out of that purchase. I also have discount codes for Yes Welder, Evolution Power Tools, maybe a couple other things, also listed in the description. So again, thank you for watching, and until next time, take care of yourselves. See you. That's it. That's right. You can go now. Just go.